My name is Kevin, a 34-year-old male office worker. I work for a large corporation, but the tasks assigned to me are all very simple. The reason for this is that my boss, Mike, thinks I'm incompetent and never gives me any substantial work. So, I end up doing menial tasks like making coffee and photocopying, just like a handyman. I don't think anyone does these kinds of tasks anymore. If someone wants coffee, they go to the break room themselves, and if they need copies, they make them themselves. But Mike and the others treat me like a gopher, making me do all sorts of odd jobs. However, these tasks are so trivial that I finish them quickly and end up feeling bored. I always wished I could be assigned more challenging and fulfilling tasks. I pride myself on being diligent, but I'm not assertive, so I never stand up to Mike or the others. This has been the case since childhood. In school, from elementary to high school, I was constantly teased by a classmate named Nick. Nick called me a gloomy guy and always laughed at me. Indeed, if I had to choose between being cheerful or gloomy, I'd fall into the latter category. I didn't hang out with the others and spend my breaks reading books or writing stories, so I didn't have any friends. When Nick saw me drawing or writing, he would say things like this: "Yuck, you're drawing pictures even though you're a boy. You're really creepy. Hey, why would you say that? I don't think it's weird at all." Yes, it's weird. I mean, all other 5th grade boys like soccer or baseball, but you're the only one drawing in the classroom. Look, everyone. Kevin is drawing strange pictures. Stop it, please, give it back. Try to take it back if you're so upset. Here. Nick had been harassing me like this since elementary school. He was so unpleasant to be around, but unfortunately, we ended up in the same middle and high schools, which was the worst. In high school, our class decided to do a play for the cultural festival, and Nick, wanting to tease me, nominated me for the lead role. I hated standing out, so I was truly shocked. Kevin should play the lead role of Romeo. What? I think Kevin has great acting skills and will perform wonderfully. I've known him since elementary school, so I know everything about him. Therefore, the role of Romeo should be Kevin's. Just wait a minute. Despite my protests, everyone agreed, and I ended up playing Romeo in Romeo and Juliet, albeit reluctantly. The girl who played Juliet was crying, saying, "I wish I could have performed with a more handsome guy." That was a shock to me, too. I knew I wasn't particularly good looking. I felt sorry for my parents, but I thought my facial attractiveness was below average. Although the girl seemed displeased, the play was a success, and we received a round of applause. But I hated being the center of attention and really wanted to disappear. While everyone else went to a barbecue restaurant to celebrate, I curled up in bed at home. Because of these experiences, I'm still very timid. I can speak up to those in higher positions, so I thought I would continue doing an interesting work. One day, a woman came to our headquarters from a regional office. Her name was Elizabeth, and she was going to be my new boss. She was about 5'3", but she looks a bit taller because of her high heels. Additionally, she's a beauty with a well-defined nose and fair skin. I wondered what I'd do if my direct boss turned out to be a tough character. But Elizabeth wasn't harsh at all and treated me kindly. "Kevin, could you help me with this document preparation?" "Me? Do the document preparation?" "Yes, I was going to ask someone else, but everyone is busy and refused. It's not that you seemed free. Please don't take it the wrong way." "No, I'll do it. Please use me if you think I can be of help." "Great, then I'm counting on you." Elizabeth gave me a task. I was thrilled to finally have a meaningful job after such a long time. Having only done mundane tasks until now, I devoted myself fully to document preparation. Thanks to my efforts, I managed to create a document that was easy to understand and neatly organized. "Elizabeth, I've finished this. Is it okay like this?" "Oh, thank you, it looks great." It's nice and easy to understand when it's organized so cleanly. Kevin, you're good at preparing documents, aren't you? Well, yeah, I do like doing this kind of work. I'll ask for your help again then. Yes, of course. I felt elated all day because Elizabeth praised my document preparation. But my mood was dampened when Mike called me in and assigned me yet another tedious task. It was to bind printed data into files in the document room. I wondered why he couldn't do such a simple task himself. Moreover, there were 3 boxes worth of files to organize, which was quite a task. My back started to hurt, and by the time I finished, I was completely worn out. I couldn't help but think to myself, they shouldn't have let it pile up this much in the first place. Back at my desk, I saw Elizabeth working diligently. There was a pleasant scent coming from her. Perhaps it was the fragrance of her perfume. I realized I was quite taken with Elizabeth. Or more accurately, she had become quite a significant figure to me. Elizabeth, a graduate of a prestigious university in the city, and having studied abroad in the U.S., exuded an intellectual aura. No wonder many male colleagues were aiming for her. They probably wanted a smart and beautiful woman like her as their girlfriend. Elizabeth, though younger than me at 30, was already a section chief. Being intelligent, attractive, and stylish, she was a woman who couldn't be ignored by anyone. During breaks, male colleagues would flock to invite her to lunch. But she would politely decline everyone's invitations with a smile. Then, she would sit alone at her desk, nibbling on a sandwich. I also preferred eating deli lunches at my desk, so I felt a sense of camaraderie and was somewhat pleased by this similarity. I dislike crowded places like the cafeteria, and I hate going there alone. Once, when I went to the cafeteria by myself, a female colleague said, "Look, there's a loner," and laughed at me. Since then, I never went back. Eating at the popular lunch outside is a hassle because of the lines, and I'd have to rush my meal to get back on time. I didn't want to rush my meal, so deli lunches were more than enough for me. Elizabeth was kind to other female colleagues, but they said she was standoffish because she was an elite. I didn't see her that way. It seemed more like jealousy. She was attractive, had a good figure, and a solid education, so there was a barrier. Also, other female colleagues were married or had children. They would say to her, "You wouldn't understand because you're single." I felt sorry for Elizabeth. She might have her reasons for being single, and I wished they would just leave her alone. Middle-aged women would say, "You better get married soon, or you won't be able to have kids," which was none of their business. No one would want to hear such comments from their peers. Even if I were a woman, I thought I couldn't bear it. But Elizabeth never got angry. Instead, she always laughed it off. One day, Elizabeth said to me, "Could you accompany me to a business meeting tomorrow?" Me. "Yes, I want you to learn. We're planning to collaborate with company to create food products for patients with a certain disease." "Wow, really? Well then, I'll go. I'm not sure if I can be of any help, though. I'm just an inexperienced office worker, after all." "Don't talk about yourself like that. You're working hard, aren't you, Kevin? Education and position don't matter. If you keep at it, you will be rewarded eventually." "Yeah, you're right. I'll do my best. Please take me with you to learn." And so, we headed to the business meeting the next day. Our company, B Corporation, specializes in food products, and A Corporation is in the medical field. Elizabeth mentioned that we were developing food items for patients with a specific illness. I had read the materials she gave me beforehand, thinking about what we were planning to create. The focus was on patients with skin diseases. So, I thought about this for patients with epidermolysis bullosa, nutrient-packed cookies. Yes, I heard these patients often have difficulty with nutritional intake, so I thought cookies packed with nutrients might work. But you see, Patients with epidermolysis bullosa also have mucosal lesions and might find it painful to eat something like cookies. Ah, I see. David from a corporation listened to Elizabeth's idea with a frown. Epidermolysis bullosa is a complex skin condition where the skin is fragile and easily forms blisters. It can occur anywhere on the body, including inside the mouth. For moderate to severe cases, oral intake becomes difficult, and patients struggle to eat. We need nutrition to survive, but eating becomes a challenge. However, David was concerned that nutrient-packed cookies might be too hard and hurt the mouth. Indeed, cookies are crunchy. We tried selling beverages before, but they didn't sell well because they tasted bad. Really? I see. A corporation's beverage was thick and unappetizing. To put it bluntly, it felt undrinkable. The beverage was drinkable, but its thick, unpleasant texture and taste made people feel sick, especially children. What should we do? It's hard to find something that's both nutritious and enjoyable for everyone. You're a food company, right? Shouldn't you come up with something easier to eat or drink? Our company is a medical manufacturer, so you should be better at this, right? Yes, well, I had gathered opinions, and cookies seemed like a reasonable choice. Really? This is not going anywhere. We asked for your help because we're in trouble. This won't help the patients. I'm sorry, let me think about it again. But we have a tasting session for the patients next month. We can't wait any longer. Well, Elizabeth was in a tight spot. That's when I made a suggestion. How about chocolate or marshmallows? What? Think of chocolate that melts in the mouth, not the hard, crunchy kind. Maybe something with a texture like ganache. And marshmallows are soft and melt in the mouth, too. Plus, they can be nutrient-richer, even kids would enjoy it. And that sounds better than these prototype cookies. Yes, it's a good idea to market it as a snack that is easy to eat while still providing nutrition, rather than just as a dietary supplement. There are various types of this disease, and some types particularly affect the mouth and esophagus, causing blisters and erosions. So, we should highlight the melting texture. As for your company's beverage, it's a bit difficult to say, but it was quite thick and reminded me of barium. Exactly, I thought it resembled barium. It also reminded me of the nutritional drink my father had to consume when he was hospitalized with cancer. Unfortunately, the combination of ingredients made it taste bad. I thought about pudding or jelly, but they don't have a long shelf life. So, I thought melt-in-your-mouth candy would be better. What do you think, David? Yes, that makes sense. Pudding is easy to eat but has a short shelf life, and we want to produce a large quantity. Then let's go with chocolate and marshmallows. It's winter, so it'll be perfect for Valentine's Day. Oh, that's true. Please do that. Could you email us the details, Kevin? Yes, I'll send you a quote right away. Once I confirm it with my supervisor, I'll get back to you. Elizabeth looked at me intently. Her eyes were wide, probably wondering why someone like me, who she considered an inexperienced worker, would make such a suggestion. On the way back to the office, I explained to her that there are 4 main types of epidermolysis bullosa and the various treatment methods. Elizabeth nodded, taking notes and asking me questions. Kevin, you're really talented, aren't you? You said you were just an incompetent employee, but I don't see you that way. Perhaps you are someone with incredible knowledge. Ahaha, no way, that's not true at all. Come on, you must be a real elite, right? You probably attended a more prestigious university than I did and have lots of qualifications, right? Kevin, who are you really? Please, tell me honestly. Elizabeth's eyes were serious. Realizing it was futile to hide it any longer, I decided to reveal my background. I'm a college graduate. At least, that's true. Really? I thought so, but may I ask which university? I thought she was just asking out of curiosity. ABC Medical University. What? I graduated from the medical school. Actually, I have both a medical license and a lawyer's qualification. Wait, you're from the medical school, so you were a doctor? No, I passed the national medical examination but didn't become a doctor. And a lawyer too. Did you go to law school, Kevin? It's impossible to have such a background. No, that's the truth. Actually, I obtained my lawyer's qualification through the preliminary examination route. The preliminary examination route. I heard it's more challenging than passing the exam after graduating from law school. Kevin, why did you say you were just an incompetent employee? You're an incredible person with hidden academic credentials and background. Ahaha, well, I was only good at studying. I was always teased by classmates for that. I also wrote novels and drew pictures, but was told it was creepy. You're an incredible genius, like a modern-day Da Vinci. Amazing, Kevin. Thank you for helping me earlier. I was panicking and didn't know how to respond to David. Thank you so much. No, I'm not that great. I had hidden my educational background at the company. But I didn't lie about it during my job application, as that would be misrepresentation. I had correctly listed my university on my resume. However, at B Corporation, a large company, only HR and top management knew about my education, background, and qualifications. Mike and other colleagues probably thought I was just another graduate student. Since medical school is a 6-year program, they assumed I was a graduate student. Mike always yelled at me, saying, "You spent years in school and you are still useless." That's when I decided to play the part of an incompetent graduate. Rumor-loving people were spreading that I had attended a graduate school at some university. But I decided to act as if I had never attended any graduate school and was a hopeless person. There was a reason I pretended to be incapable. I became distrustful of people because of the harassment I faced from my classmate Nick. The only thing I loved was studying. So, I entered medical school, studied hard, and aspired to become a doctor. However, during my 6th year, a traumatic event occurred during my practical training. A little girl with a rare skin disease, who was under my care, passed away. She had a skin condition and succumbed to an infection. People with skin diseases are prone to infections, so care is crucial. But even with careful attention, fragile skin easily becomes infected. I wished such diseases didn't exist in this world. At the same time, I realized that doctors can't save everyone. My parents had paid for my education, so I took the national exam but decided not to become a doctor. I wondered if there was another way to help people, so I decided to become a lawyer. Of course, I had no time or financial support to attend law school. So, I chose to take the legal bar preliminary examination. First, I had to pass the preliminary exam to qualify for the actual bar exam. Frankly, I think it's more challenging than passing the bar exam after graduating from law school. But I passed and later completed my legal training, obtaining a lawyer's qualification. However, another tragedy struck then. My mentor was victimized by a vengeful client and suffered terribly. Eventually, my mentor passed away. I decided to become a lawyer to help others, but the thought of being resented like that was unbearable. So, I chose to work as a regular office worker instead. During interviews, I was repeatedly questioned whether I, a medical school graduate with both medical and legal qualifications, wanted to be a regular employee. But I just wanted a peaceful life, so I gave non-offensive, standard answers. That's how I ended up here. Initially, I was enthusiastic about my work, but I started being called overeager for my age and a nuisance, so I stopped trying. Most of the new graduates were from 4-year colleges, unlike me, who spent years in medical school and legal training. I was treated as a useless person just because I was older, but I didn't care anymore. Indeed, the work assigned to me wasn't interesting, and I wanted something more fulfilling, but I hated being in difficult situations. I just didn't want to take on any responsibility. But this time was different. Elizabeth was in trouble, and I wanted to help her. Since she had recently been paying attention to me, I just thought about what I could do for her. When I shared my past with Elizabeth, she had tears in her eyes. I felt a bit happy realizing she was crying for me. Kevin, you're a very kind person. Perhaps you were too kind, which made it hard for you to become a doctor or a lawyer. But I think that's nothing to be ashamed of. It just means you have a pure heart. Do you think so? Oh, right. I need to email David. I'll hurry and make the estimate. Can I also prepare the documentation? I think I can do it in about an hour. Really? In just 1 hour? You're truly amazing. I'm so surprised. It's not that big of a deal. All right, I'll leave it to you. I prepared the documents and the estimate and attached them to an email. When I sent it to David, his boss called early the next morning. His boss liked my idea and wanted to place an order. A corporation sells medical devices and supplies, but also nutritional supplements. They sell supplements and similar products. They were planning a joint development project, combining their supplement powder with our company's confectionery ingredients. Our chocolates and marshmallows were inexpensive but popular for their delicious taste. I asked the development department to adjust the texture to create melt-in-the-mouth chocolate and marshmallows. We had to ensure that the addition of a corporation's supplement powder didn't ruin the taste or texture. They planned to sell it as a private brand in a group's pharmacies, among other places. I hoped not only people with skin diseases but also those who wanted to easily consume nutrients-rich sweets would find these products appealing. Once we received the order from a corporation, we worked at a rapid pace to develop the product. We created smooth-textured chocolates and marshmallows that melted softly in the mouth. When David tried them, he was full of praise. This is incredible. I didn't expect such smoothness from chocolate. It's not as soft as ganache but melts the moment it's in the mouth. Yes, we made it so it wouldn't melt easily in your hand, yet melts delightfully in your mouth. Let me try the marshmallow. Wow, it melts too. It's like meringue dissolving. Jess, we worked on making it fluffy and melting. What do you think? It's great. It doesn't taste like a typical nutritional supplement, and I think people with illnesses, even kids, will happily eat it. It's bound to be popular. That's great to hear. Thank you. Can you take a large order for next month? Yes, we'll do our best. We did it, thanks to you, Kevin. It's not just me. It was possible because of the development team, and your suggestions were very helpful, Elizabeth. No, my suggestions weren't that significant. No, they were very helpful. Since the successful launch of our new chocolate and marshmallow products, we have been extremely busy. Orders started pouring in, and we received inquiries from many clients besides pharmacies. With so many orders, we definitely need to increase our production capacity. Yes, but we also need to find more suppliers for our materials, and we need to expand our production lines. I wonder if there's a suitable location. We all started looking for a factory. Ultimately, it was thanks to a corporation's assistance that we found a large one. They had greatly benefited from our partnership, so they introduced us to a factory they knew as a gesture of gratitude. Once production began in the factory, we were able to achieve significant sales. Our products were well received not only by patients but also by the general public, who purchased them in large numbers. Of course, a corporation's tasting event was a huge success, and we were thanked for it. I had never been thanked like this before, so it made me very happy. We did it. This quarter's profits are likely to soar, thanks to you, Kevin. I really appreciate it. Yes, it's all thanks to everyone's efforts, and thank you too, Elizabeth. No, I didn't do anything worth being thanked for. Jess, you did a lot. How about we go out for drinks to celebrate? Both a corporation and our president Aaron are delighted with the event's success. With me. Is that a problem? No, no, I'll come. I'd never been out for drinks alone with a woman, so my heart was pounding. Elizabeth took me to a stylish bar, and I entered, feeling nervous. It was a bit dark, like a grown-up's hideaway. I'd never been to such a fancy place and wondered how to handle the bill. Elizabeth seemed to be a strong drinker, ordering several rounds. I was slightly tipsy by my second drink, my heart racing. I had never imagined enjoying drinks like this with such a wonderful person, almost like a date. I realized I was deeply in love with her and impulsively confessed. It was my first confession ever. Elizabeth, I like you. Sorry for saying this so suddenly. I honestly expressed my feelings to her. It was a heart-thumping moment, my first ever confession. She looked surprised at first but then smiled warmly. Really? That's great. I like you too, Kevin. What? You didn't realize. I always ate at my desk because I wanted to be with you. I thought you had some reason for not going to the cafeteria. Making a woman say this, isn't it normal to want to be with someone you like all the time? You like me. Yes, I've liked you from the beginning. You're hardworking, sincere. It's not about your education. I've been watching you all this time. Is that so? Elizabeth and I, both blushing, walked home hand in hand. Our hands felt warm, maybe because we were tipsy. It was a moment when I realized I'm really happy. Until now, I think I've lived a life filled with worries. Despite having a gifted mind, I never fully engaged in anything due to my personality. I learned that being good at studying doesn't necessarily mean being useful in society, but now I want to contribute more to the company. And that wouldn't be possible without Elizabeth. She was the only one in the company who was kind to me. Afterward, we introduced each other to our friends and spent more time together. We went on drives, visited delicious restaurants, and even went to the pool in the summer, creating many memories. We were dating, but we kept our relationship a secret at the company. However, it gradually became known. Around that time, Elizabeth had started talking to the other female employees. She had been disliked by some for being perceived as overly intellectual, but those employees apologized to her. Then, one day, we decided to meet each other's families. Elizabeth's family was very warm and welcomed me as a new member of their family. My family also welcomed Elizabeth with open arms. With the blessings of both our families, our bond grew even stronger. Eventually, we decided to get married. I was extremely nervous when proposing, but seeing Elizabeth's joy made me realize that spending a week choosing the engagement ring was worth it. On the wedding day, seeing Elizabeth in her dress, I was struck by her beauty. And when she smiled and said, "Thank you for everything. I love you," I felt I was at the peak of happiness. Since then, we have been living a happy married life. Meeting Elizabeth was the greatest fortune of my life. Without her, I wouldn't be the person I am today. We vowed to support and encourage each other and face life's challenges together. Our days are filled with happiness. From now on, I will do everything in my power for my wife. I realized I had ended up in a place that was completely out of place for me. I truly felt that way deep down. I wanted to leave, but I had to consider my cousin Emily's feelings. Realizing it wouldn't be right to leave, I quietly drank my drink. Surrounded by idols, female celebrities, elite businessmen from international corporations, and aspiring doctors. Their professions were high caliber, and their looks were impressively attractive. I just wished this mixer would end soon. That was all that was on my mind. I'm Michael. I'm a 28-year-old ordinary guy. Well, my job might be a bit unusual. I'm a writer, a profession somewhat familiar, yet unfamiliar, in everyday life. but I'm not one of those best-selling authors whose books instantly become bestsellers or get adapted into dramas or movies. Of course, I aspire to have many people read my works. It would truly make me happy if my stories caught someone's eye and moved their heart. I debuted as a writer 4 years ago. My second novel, fortunately, won a Newcomer's Prize in a famous literary award. It got a lot of media attention and sold incredibly well. Thankfully, that novel was adapted into a drama. With decent viewership ratings, I hope to join the ranks of successful authors with my third novel. However, the third book only created a bit of buzz and didn't sell well. The hastily written fourth book didn't do any better. I was slowly becoming a one-hit wonder as a writer. I thought about giving up writing altogether, but I just couldn't. I yearned for someone to read the stories I created. This desire was something I couldn't suppress. Yet, the reality is that I need to work to survive. So, I was living modestly, working as a traffic controller, a job I had also done as a part-time gig during high school and college. I would return home from my traffic control shifts, eat meals from the convenience store, and write my novels. That was my daily routine. One day, after finishing my shift as a traffic controller, I was on my way home. My cell phone, which had been silent for a while, rang, and I was slightly surprised to see the caller ID, but I answered the call. "Hey, Michael, long time no see. How are you, still alive?" The voice on the other end of the phone was as cheerful as ever. The caller was Emily, a 23-year-old pop idol. Why was a lackluster writer like me talking on the phone with a pop idol and even being called by my first name? Because Emily is my cousin. "Yeah, I'm good. You're doing great too. I heard your new song." "Really? Thank you. I'm so happy. The first week's sales were pretty good." Emily sounded genuinely delighted. Her happiness made me feel good too. Emily had always been cute and often talked about wanting to be a pop idol. She made her dream come true, and I admire and am proud of her for that. "That's great, Emily. You're really putting in the effort. But why did you call? It's been a while, hasn't it? Is something wrong?" When I asked, Emily suddenly spoke in a serious tone. "Michael, do you have time right now? Even if you don't, come. I need you at the station in 30 minutes. Please, I'll be in trouble if you don't come," she said quickly, and before I could ask anything, the call was abruptly ended. Emily has always been like this, a whirlwind of action, often letting others on. Yet, I couldn't dislike her for it. I envied her drive, something I lacked. Sighing, I decided to head to the station she mentioned. Traveling by subway, I arrived at the station Emily had specified about 20 minutes after the call. Relieved that I made it in time, I was suddenly tapped on the shoulder from behind. "You made it, Michael. Way to go. I'm so relieved." Turning around, I was greeted by Emily's beaming smile. Being a pop idol, she wore a cap and had her mask pulled down, smiling brightly. "Hey, put your mask on. You never know who might see you." Seeing me panic, Emily burst into laughter. "It's dark, nobody can see faces. You worry too much, Michael, but thanks for coming." "So, what's going on? Did something happen?" When I asked, Emily cheerfully explained why she had summoned me. "Oh, well, it's an invitation to a mixer or a party." "What? Are you serious?" I blurted out in surprise, unfamiliar with such terms, and Emily scolded me. "Seriously, you're too loud. Keep it down. What if someone recognizes us?" Emily chided me. "Sorry, but look at what I'm wearing. Can I even enter a fancy place dressed like this?" I voiced my biggest concern. "I'm currently wearing a tank top." After finishing my job directing traffic, I showered back at the office, so I'm pretty sure I don't smell bad, and the tank top is brand new. Additionally, I've been saving money by not getting haircuts, so now I have a buzz cut. My footwear, sandals, are definitely not the type of attire suitable for a fancy restaurant. Unfazed by my worries, Emily flashed an okay sign with her fingers, smiling. The place isn't that formal. Look at me, I'm just wearing a t-shirt and jeans. Wait, just hold on. Comparing a current pop idol to a struggling 28-year-old part-timer like me isn't fair. I thought it would be best to leave the place, but Emily, anticipating this, firmly grabbed my arm, preventing me from going. I really should go back, I insisted. But you'll definitely regret it if you do. It's better if you stay, Emily replied with determination. As we were debating whether to stay or leave, Emily was approached by someone. Emily, sorry I'm late. As we both turned around at the sound of the voice, a man stood there, exuding confidence. His suit appeared expensive, impeccably tailored without a single wrinkle, and his leather shoes were polished to a shine. "Odd Brad, good to see you. I wasn't waiting long." Emily's voice changed, becoming higher-pitched. Emily's quick transformation made me realize how scary women can be. And who is this gentleman?" "He's an acquaintance of mine," she replied quickly. Naturally, the fact that Emily and I are cousins is a secret. There are unscrupulous media outlets that dig out childhood stories of celebrities like Emily, fabricating tales and creating false narratives. Relatives of celebrities are often easy targets. "So nice to meet you. Have we met before?" I apologized, genuinely not remembering him. While I was trying to figure out what to say, the man, Brad, seemed to be recalling something, then suddenly exclaimed, "Could it be Michael? Is that you, Michael?" Yes, that's me, but sorry, When the guy correctly guessed my name, I was definitely flustered. Not remembering him seemed way too rude on my part. "It's me, Brad. We were in college together, remember? Different faculties, but you were in the literature department, right?" It all came back to me. Brad had indeed been my classmate in college. We'd occasionally spoken after I'd shared a textbook with him in class. "Oh, now that you mention it, sorry, I didn't recognize you right away." Brad laughed at my words. "No problem. Even I'm amazed at my own memory, but seriously, what's with that outfit? You look like a broke guy." His laughter drew curious looks from passers-by. Well, he was right about my outfit being uncool. Watching Brad laugh nonstop, I remembered he was always like this in college. Brad was a smart guy but had a habit of looking down on others. Smart and good-looking. He also had a great sense of style, so he was probably popular with others. However, I remember seeing him alone sometimes, so maybe he wasn't well-liked even back then. I was called here suddenly, so I wasn't sure about the dress code. I glanced at Emily. "Everything's fine, really. You don't look bad or smell bad, and it's okay to be casual in this place." Encouragingly, Emily led the way into the restaurant she had presumably booked. "Hey, wait up, Emily. I'm coming too." Brad, seemingly smitten with Emily, eagerly followed her. Sighing, I also entered the restaurant. Gradually, more people joined, and the private room filled up, ending with 3 men and 2 women. Brad introduced himself as working for a foreign financial firm, and the other man mentioned he was a medical trainee. The other woman, apparently a friend of Emily's from the entertainment industry, was a charming girl, though not yet active in her talent career. "I've been mostly living off part-time jobs lately. I'm not an elite or a doctor, nor do I have great looks, but I hope we can all have a good time. Nice to meet you." Everyone, except Brad, seemed to receive my introduction warmly, looking at me kindly. But Brad, seemingly displeased with the atmosphere, continued to make snide remarks about my boring life and how working part-time at my age was pitiful. I decided to drink quietly, letting his sarcastic jabs slide off me. About an hour later, a knock on the door interrupted us, and a woman wearing a mask and cap entered the room. Seeing her, Emily let out a relieved sigh. I was worried you wouldn't make it. Sorry to keep you waiting. The shoot took longer than expected. I was really rushing here. I was surprised when she took off her mask and cap, because there stood Sarah, a new actress who was currently the talk of the town. Sarah had won a grand prize on a famous audition show and entered the entertainment world, sweeping numerous newcomer awards for her acting talent. She was becoming the undisputed queen of commercials, appearing on TV almost daily. While I was certainly surprised and a bit starstruck, having Emily as a pop idol cousin helped me regain my composure quickly. But there was one person who couldn't calm down. "Well, Sarah, I'm so glad I came today. Sit here, next to me." Brad's loud excitement earned him a caution from Emily. "Hey, Brad, keep it down, please. We can manage, but you'll trouble Sarah. I know, but I'm just so excited. Hey, Sarah, come sit here." Still not over his excitement, Brad tried to pull Sarah forcefully next to him. As she let out a small yelp, Emily and her friend tried to intervene. Feeling I couldn't ignore this, I grabbed Brad's wrist. "Hey, stop it, Brad. Calm down. First of all, it's not right to touch a woman without permission, no matter who she is." I squeezed his wrist, causing him to frown. I'm pretty slender for a guy, so people often think I'm not very strong. But in traffic control, I have to set up various items, which means carrying and moving heavy loads. It's more physically demanding than it appears, so I've naturally developed some muscle strength. Additionally, as a traffic controller, I've had drivers irritated with the traffic control lash out at me with complaints, and sometimes they even get out of their cars to confront me directly. I've learned techniques and training to de-escalate situations and avoid prolonging conflicts. I never thought I'd use these skills outside of traffic control. But you never know what might come in handy in life. It must have been frustrating for Brad to be stopped by me, someone who was just quietly drinking until that moment. He let go of Sarah's hand, but his face turned bright red as he confronted me. "What? Who do you think you are? Trying to act cool? Just a traffic control part-timer. Do you know how much I make at a foreign financial firm? It's probably more than you make in years." I internally groaned at the hassle. Using such trivial matters to assert dominance seemed so petty. Just as I was thinking of taking Brad outside, Sarah spoke up. "I don't even know your name yet, but I really dislike people like you. How can you say such things to someone? There's something truly intimidating about a beautiful woman's stern face." I witnessed it firsthand. Faced with Sarah's intensity, Brad stumbled over his words in a flustered attempt at an explanation. "Yay, but listen, I worked hard, studied, and got a job at a good company. And this guy here, he studied literature or something in college, which I don't even know if it's useful, paying high tuition for that." Brad continued his heated rant. "It's true, literature studies are often questioned like, what do you do with that? Or what will you become in the future? I used to think about it as if it was someone else's problem." But Brad's diatribe was far from over. "He ends up as a traffic controller. That's messed up. That's why I say it's about the lack of effort, the inability to make future-oriented choices. This guy's naive thinking, and that's when it happened." Sarah interrupted the flow of conversation with something unexpected. "I can't believe it. Do you not know who he is? Such a famous writer and all." Brad stood there with his mouth open, completely baffled. And embarrassingly, I must have had the same expression for a moment. Emily burst out laughing at that. Brad seemed to reboot at the sound of her laugh. "What, Sarah, what are you saying? This guy's a writer, and famous. I have no clue about him. It's just your ignorance." Sarah retorted with a smile, though her eyes weren't smiling at all. Her smile for me, however, was genuinely happy, and it made my heart race. "Actually, I'm a huge fan of your work. I particularly love his debut story." Sarah then passionately discussed my work, analyzing the psychological portrayal and character development, and how wonderfully the plot threads were tied together. She talked about each of his books, from my debut to the second and third, showing a deep understanding of them. I was absolutely thrilled, feeling a warmth spread throughout my body. It was so gratifying to know that the stories I had written had resonated so deeply with someone. I shared with Sarah the backstory of how I felt while writing that particular scene, what my intentions were, and why I had the characters say certain lines, details I had only ever shared with my editor before. Sarah and I became so engrossed in discussing the novel that we completely lost track of time and place, carried away by our conversation. It was Emily who had to interrupt us. "Okay, you two, stop. Nobody else can follow along anymore." We both looked around, embarrassed, and laughed. Emily, knowing my profession, was laughing joyously, and the other members, who had received me warmly, were watching us with smiles. Suddenly, both Sarah and I felt embarrassed and shared a laugh as our eyes met. "Come on, what's the big deal about being a writer? You're not even selling well right now, right? So, it's not that impressive." In response to Brad's words, Sarah countered, "You have no idea how hard it is to create stories that move people's hearts. Such a lack of sensitivity, no matter how good your job is. I despise people who say such things." Brad, hoping for some support, turned to Emily, looking desperate. "What? Despise? You can't be serious, Emily. You don't think that, right? Compared to an unsuccessful writer like me working at an international finance company, I must be more impressive, right?" Brad, with a look of desperation on his face, sought agreement from the group. "I certainly respect writers. Besides, I really dislike people who mock others' appearances like Brad does. I would never choose someone like him." Brad's face turned pale at her words. The other guests, including the aspiring doctor and the entertainer, nodded in agreement. Realizing he had no allies or support in the room, Brad pulled out his wallet and slammed two $100 bills on the table. "I'll never come back to a place like this again," he exclaimed before storming out. "Don't worry, you won't be invited to these gatherings anymore. Word spreads fast that you have a bad personality, Brad." Brad left the private room in a flurry, uttering incoherent sounds. In his absence, a sense of relief filled the air, and we decided to enjoy our meal anew, now as a group of 5. The atmosphere had transformed completely, becoming cheerful and enjoyable. I sincerely felt glad that I came to this place today. At that moment, a question suddenly popped into my mind. "Hey, Emily. Was the reason you invited me here today because you wanted me to meet Sarah?" As I reminisced about the sudden invitation and how I was persuaded not to leave, I asked her this question. "Yes, that's right. I found out that Sarah is a huge fan of your novels. I thought it would be nice to introduce you to," Emily replied. Emily revealed that it was indeed a coincidence that she found out Sarah was a huge fan of my novels. Apparently, Sarah once had a mishap in a TV station corridor, bumping into someone and spilling her bag's contents all over the place. Emily had rushed over to help pick up Sarah's scattered items and found my novel among them. The novel was obviously well read, and Emily handed it over and asked, "Do you like this book?" "Oh, you found it. Thank goodness," I was so worried. When Emily received the novel from Sarah, she held it to her chest with great care, as if it were precious. This made Emily think that Sarah might be a huge fan. Upon asking, it turned out that indeed, she was a big fan of mine. Emily revealed that she was a relative of mine and had arranged today's gathering for this reason. I had no idea, thank you. I'm so happy to know that someone cherishes what I've poured my heart and soul into creating. I truly am a fan of your work, Michael. Your stories have inspired me and helped me persevere through various challenges." Sarah spoke passionately again, reaffirming my resolve to keep writing, regardless of my popularity. After leaving the restaurant and as we were parting ways, I desperately wanted Sarah's contact information. I hesitated, though, I was nearly a nobody, and she was a rising star. It was a dilemma like no other I had faced in my life. Emily, sensing my hesitation, encouraged me. "Go for it. Ask her. She'll definitely give you her contact details." Buoyed by Emily's confidence, I approached Sarah. If it's okay with you, could I have your contact details?" I felt like I had just leaped off a cliff, a moment of taking a big risk. It felt like I was mustering all the courage I hadn't used in a long time. As I nervously awaited her response, "Is that okay? I was actually hoping to ask you first. It feels like a dream. I'm so happy, thank you." When I looked up at Sarah's response, she looked genuinely pleased, making me feel happy as well. Following that, we began exchanging messages. I had a flexible schedule, but she was busy. Initially, I was really unsure about how often to send messages. I didn't want to make her feel compelled to reply amidst her busy schedule. With that in mind, I didn't message her too frequently. However, she eventually reached out to me. "Getting a message from you, Michael, really helps me get through the day. I might not be able to reply immediately, but I'll definitely get back to you," she wrote. Reading that, I was genuinely happy. From then on, we got to know each other at our own pace, slowly growing closer. We often went out to eat, not just the two of us, but with Emily and other members of the group, and we had a great time. However, one day, I couldn't reach Sarah for about 3 days. She usually informed me in advance if she was going to be unavailable for a long time due to shooting or something similar. On the first and second days, I thought she must be too busy or tired to contact me, but by the third day, I couldn't stand it anymore and tried calling her, but couldn't get through. Worried that something might have happened, I called Emily. "Hello, I kinda thought you'd be calling soon." Emily's voice sounded more like forced cheerfulness and her usual brightness. She seemed to be trying hard to act normal. "Is something up with Sarah? Emily, if you know something, could you please tell me?" I pleaded desperately. When I pressed further, Emily finally opened up. The news was so shocking that I stood there, phone to my ear, unable to move. I don't quite remember what else was said after that. But after hanging up, I had made up my mind about something. "Is it okay if I come in? It's me, Michael." I knocked on the door of the hospital room, and after hearing a faint response from her, I took a deep breath and opened the door. "I thought you might come. I got an apology email from Emily." Sarah was lying on a large hospital bed, smiling gently. She was sitting up with an 4 drip attached. "Sorry, I'm not wearing makeup. I wanted to look nice when meeting Michael. After all, I am an actress." Her smiling face looked a bit thinner than before, and her face was pale. I walked up to the bed, maintaining my composure, and after asking for permission, sat down on the chair beside the bed. "Sarah, you always look great, but you're beautiful even without makeup," I said sincerely, and it seemed my words reached her. She looked a bit shy. "It's been tough, hasn't it? I haven't heard the details, but I know about your condition," I said. Sarah nodded slightly and looked down. Just when things were starting to go well, and it felt like it was just the beginning. "Why did this have to happen? I'm so frustrated. I never thought I'd have breast cancer," she shared. "Yeah, I understand. It's especially hard because it's right at the moment when things were taking off for you," I responded empathetically. Sarah must be struggling to come to terms with her sudden illness. A young woman like her, diagnosed with breast cancer, it's hard to comprehend. Nobody knows when illness might strike, but for her to face this challenge at such a crucial point in her life seems like an incredibly harsh trial. What kind of test is this, I wonder? As a writer, I feel pathetic for not being able to find the right words to comfort her, I admitted. "People always struggle with what to say to someone who's ill," Sarah replied gently, "but having been through it, I realize how much it means to have someone worry and stand by you." It was a humbling moment, being consoled by someone younger. She hesitated before continuing. "I know it depends on how I'm feeling, but..." Saying that, Sarah paused mid-sentence. It seemed like she was struggling to find the right words, as if she was hesitant. "What's up? If there's anything I can do, just tell me," I offered earnestly. "I want to support her." "Would you mind visiting me like this when you have time?" she asked. Hearing Sarah's wish, in a way, I felt relieved. Because, after all, it was what I had hoped for too. Of course, I was planning to do that from the start. You beat me to saying it. After sharing a brief laugh, I pulled an envelope out of my bag. "Sarah, this is for you. Could you open it?" "Can I?" She opened the envelope honestly and took out its contents. Seeing what was inside, she looked surprised. "This is the new novel I'm working on. It's about romance and adulthood, with all its complexities and heartaches. The story follows a protagonist who, despite many trials, finds a wonderful love." As I briefly described it, a flush of excitement colored her pale face. "Your new work sounds so interesting, but can I really read this?" "Yes, of course, I want you to read it. I'll keep writing it bit by bit and bring it to you. I hope it can be a source of motivation during your treatment," I suggested. My words brought tears to her eyes, and soon she was crying. I hastily offered Sarah a handkerchief as she cried. She accepted it but continued crying for a while. "I'm sorry for suddenly crying. I was just so happy, and it felt like everything I've been holding in just released," she explained. "It's okay to cry, Sarah. It's important to express all your emotions, whether it's sadness, anger, or pain. I want to be someone you can comfortably share those feelings with," I reassured her. Sarah's expression became a mix of tears and laughter as she nodded several times. Then, she tenderly caressed the manuscript of the novel. "Can I start reading what you've written so far?" "Of course, go ahead." As I watched Sarah begin to read, I found myself deep in thought. I hoped, even against the odds, that she might realize it. I had modeled the protagonist of my novel after myself, and the heroine after her. It's a story about an unsuccessful writer who falls in love with a successful actress, a seemingly unattainable dream. I'm well aware that the likelihood of this romance becoming reality is slim. Nonetheless, I want the couple in my book to have a happy ending. Sarah once said she loved happy endings. Even if this love couldn't come true in reality, that's all right. My happy ending would be seeing Sarah overcome her illness and regain her health. For that, I'd spare no effort. Since then, I've been slowly completing the novel and delivering it to Sarah. When she was too ill to meet, I'd give the novel to the nurses, asking them to pass it to her when she felt better. And then, a year and a half passed. Thank you all for gathering here today. I was invited to the premiere screening of a movie that day. In front of me, under the spotlight, giving a speech, was the lead actress, Emily. Over the past year or so, Emily has transitioned from her idol activities to a career in acting. Despite challenges, her natural talent shone through. I'm truly happy to present this work to everyone today. This piece is very special to me, as it's a story about the lives of people dear to me. Emily said in her speech, radiating beauty that transcended any familial bias. Her presence there reminded me of someone I used to have feelings for. Although she no longer stands in the spotlight, she too was very beautiful. Emily's address was nearing its end. Reality can be harsh, and not everything ends happily ever after. Yet, we should continue to believe in hope. Remember and cherish your loved ones every day. Emily concluded, bowing her head. The audience erupted into a thunderous applause. I joined with all my might. Subsequently, the movie received high praise. The number of theaters showing it increased, and it was slated for a long run. Thus, my work, our story, became beloved by many. My life underwent some changes too. No longer needing to work as a traffic controller, I received non-stop requests for new novels. I moved to a more convenient apartment and now enjoy a more peaceful life. How are you feeling? Any nausea? I asked Sarah, who was lying down in the hospital, visibly tired. I'm okay, no nausea, just a bit worn out. I'll wake up after some rest, she replied. Take your time to rest. I'll take care of dinner and everything, I assured her. There it is, Michael's overprotectiveness. Sarah chuckled heartily. Seeing her laugh like that, I realized just how much happiness she brings to my life. I've told her many times, but I always wonder how much she truly understands my feelings. Being overprotective is okay, isn't it? Sarah means everything to me. I watched her as she sat up in bed, and I couldn't help but remember the tough times she went through during her illness. Sarah really fought hard. She overcame her illness, and I'm so proud of her. On the day of her discharge, I confessed my feelings to her, asking her to be with me, with the intention of marriage. I love you, Sarah. I want to support you during tough times and share joy in the happy moments. Would you consider being with me? With marriage in mind, I proposed, turning bright red. Sarah stared at me, her face a picture of disbelief. Seeing her tears, I honestly thought she was going to reject me. The thought of a lackluster writer like me proposing to a rising star actress seemed audacious. Are you sure about me? I love you too, Michael, and I'm so happy you asked, but I'm worried. There's always a chance that the cancer could come back. We don't know what the future holds. Her honesty was met with my own fervent expression of feelings. I want you, Sarah. Even if we don't know what the future holds for your health, I'll always be there to support you. I'll be by your side and keep writing stories for you, as many books as it takes. Before I knew it, tears were streaming down my face. I cried uncontrollably, unable to stop. I'll be your support, I confessed through my tears, and Sarah, crying too, nodded to my words. Even in her tearful laughter, she was as beautiful as ever, a sight I clearly remember being captivated by. Thank you, truly, thank you. I'm looking forward to our future together. I was in disbelief. Sarah accepting my proposal was nothing short of a miracle for me. We laughed together, embarking on a new chapter in our relationship. And then both Sarah and I made significant decisions. Sarah, though it was a tough choice, retired from the entertainment industry. Despite her hard work, I asked if she had any regrets. No, not anymore. Besides, I want to cherish the time I have with you now, she said with a clear, resolute expression. And my decision was to turn the story of Sarah and me into a book. Of course, since it was our story, I got Sarah's permission. The book was then adapted into a movie starring Emily. The unexpected blockbuster success took both of us by surprise, but we were happy and a little embarrassed. Hey, are you all right? What happened? It seems I was lost in thought, reminiscing about everything that has happened since I met Sarah. Snapped back to the present by her call, I apologized. Sorry. I was just thinking about everything since I met Sarah. It's been quite a journey. I still think it's a miracle that I got to marry Sarah. I love you so much. Did you hear that? Daddy loves Mommy so much. Although Sarah's belly was not yet noticeably swollen, she placed her hand on it and chalked to it. I did the same. I haven't met you yet, but I already love you. Please come into this world healthy. I'll protect you and your mom, no matter what. It seemed miraculous enough just to be with Sarah, but life had granted me another wonder. Sarah was pregnant. Given her past illness, we had more concerns than a typical pregnancy. But I was determined to support and protect Sarah through it all, including our unborn child. Don't forget to be grateful. People live by supporting each other. If you see someone in trouble, help them out. I was raised hearing these words from my grandmother since I was a child. Never did I imagine that such a thing would happen to me, living with these words close to my heart. My name is David. I grew up carefree, surrounded by my loving parents. It was a life of happiness without any want. However, during elementary school, both of my parents fell one after the other and passed away. Although I was still young, I understood what death meant. The thought of never being able to see my parents again made me so sad that I remember crying incessantly. My grandparents were the ones who took me in during that time. From now on, Grandpa and Grandma will create lots of fun memories for you, David. My grandmother said kindly, comforting me. Having retired, they were living a relaxed life, but started working again after I came to live with them. They managed to find new jobs for acquaintances, but the salary wasn't much, so we lived in poverty. Nevertheless, they never forgot to be thankful for their jobs and worked cheerfully, expressing gratitude. Grandpa and Grandma always remembered to be thankful to those around them. Even though our circumstances weren't the best, they never complained. "Why can you be so kind?" I was curious and asked them once. To which my grandmother replied, "People live by supporting each other. We're able to live today thanks to others. That's why we must never forget to be grateful to those around us." Even as a child, her words resonated with me. I thought my grandparents were wonderful people, and I wanted to be like them. I grew up never forgetting those words and eventually entered middle school. To save money for a uniform, I wore one that my cousin had used. It was worn out but still wearable. Wearing it to the entrance ceremony, I noticed some students giggling and saying, "He's the only one with a rad uniform." Feeling anxious about what might happen, my fears soon became a reality. The next day, as I went to school, those who had been laughing came up to me. "Hey, why are you wearing such a uniform?" Max, who seemed to be the leader, asked me. I can't believe how rude he is. I felt uncomfortable inside, but honestly explained the situation. Then Max and the other bullies started laughing at me mockingly. "No parents and no money, huh? That's so pathetic. I can't believe you can come to school like that. I'd be too embarrassed and would probably skip school." I was astonished by their cruel words. I thought about retorting, but then reconsidered, thinking there was no need to bother with such people, and simply ignored them. However, it seemed my attitude didn't sit well with them. From that point on, I became a constant target of their bullying. They hid my things and hit me under the guise of playing wrestling, and the bullying was quite severe. The teacher turned a blind eye, and I didn't want to worry my grandparents, so I didn't tell them. I thought it would subside eventually, but the bullying continued relentlessly. There was another student in my class who was also a target of bullying. Her name was Emily. Actually, Emily and I lived nearby and have been good friends since elementary school. We were childhood friends. She was also from a poor family, but that made it easier for us to relate to each other without any reservations. Even when friends asked to come over to my house, I always made excuses not to invite them because I was embarrassed about our poverty. Emily understood my feelings well and promised she would never say anything hurtful about it. That's why Emily was special to me, and I only invited her to my house to play together. It seemed like Emily trusted me too, as she occasionally invited me over to her house. It wasn't just playing. We also talked about our dreams for the future. I loved machines, so back then, I dreamt of building robots when I grew up. When I shared this with her, she lit up and said, "That's amazing. I'd love to see a robot you build." I was really happy to have my dream genuinely supported. Even in middle school, Emily and I continued to play together. Gradually, I began to develop romantic feelings for her. However, when Max and his group found out that Emily's family was also poor, they started to harass her. They tried to touch her forcibly and broke her things, doing whatever they pleased. On the other hand, I couldn't just stand by and watch my important friend being bullied. One day, when I saw Max and his gang holding Emily in a headlock, I remembered my grandmother's words, "Help those who are in trouble." I bravely stepped in between them. "Hey, she's a girl. Stop it." Even though I was angry, Max and his group just sneered. "What's with you, man? Do you like Emily or something? You two poor people are perfect for each other," Max taunted. I finally lost my temper. "Shut up. Enough is enough. If you bully Emily again, I won't let it slide." My outburst made the bullies falter a bit, and after throwing some parting insults, they ran off. Emily thanked me repeatedly. "Thank you. I was so scared. Thank you for helping me." "It's okay. We're friends, after all. Helping out is natural," I replied. Hearing this, Emily looked worried. "But are you sure it's okay? I'm worried they might bully you even more now." I was a bit scared of retaliation, but I smiled to reassure her. "Don't worry about it. Those guys are nothing." "Really?" Emily still looked uneasy, but I tried to calm her down, saying not to worry. Unfortunately, our fears came true. From the next day, Max and his gang stopped bullying Emily. Instead, their harassment towards me escalated. They mixed dirt in my school lunch and physically assaulted me, which was quite severe. Emily felt guilty and once cried, apologizing, "I'm sorry you're being bullied because of me." I never thought for a moment that it was Emily's fault. Rather, I felt pathetic for letting my dear friend go through such hard times. The bullying didn't stop for the entire first year of middle school. If Emily hadn't been there to support me, I might have ended up skipping school. Fortunately, in our second year, we were in different classes from Max and his group, so the bullying subsided considerably. Both Emily and I were deeply relieved. Time passed, and as we became third-year students, it was time to decide on our future paths. I had decided to get a job. It was due to financial reasons at home. I had a secret dream of building robots, and I wanted to pursue further education for that, but I didn't want to burden my grandparents anymore. Academically, I could have gone on to higher education, and both my teacher and grandparents encouraged it. The salary is different between a middle school and high school graduate. Besides, we want David to study as much as he likes. Grandma said this to me, but I knew they were struggling quite a bit. I wanted to join the workforce as soon as possible to ease their burden. Claiming I'm not that fond of studying, I overcame their objections and pursued the path of employment. Being a middle school graduate limited my options, and I eventually got a job at a cleaning company. The job was far from home, so I had to live on my own. At that time, I decided to put away my dream. Although it wasn't a company I had longed for, once I started working, I found the job rewarding. It felt good to see a dirty place become clean, and hearing "thank you for cleaning" gave me a sense of fulfillment for being able to help others. The work was physically demanding, and some people quit soon after starting, but I persevered. I was determined to do my best in what I could do at the moment. Gradually, my hard work began to be recognized by other employees. "People have come and gone, but you're the hardest worker we've had. We're really glad you joined us," they even said. My salary gradually increased, and I was able to send money back to my grandparents. They had been very worried about me, a middle school graduate entering the workforce, so my remittances seemed to relieve them a lot. When I sent money for the first time, Grandma even called me. "To receive remittances from you, you've really grown up," she said, sounding a bit teary over the phone. I was glad, feeling that I was finally able to repay them for raising me. As my salary increased, I was entrusted with cleaning larger, more important clients' buildings. Some of these buildings were impressively large. One day, while cleaning one such building, I heard someone say, "Hey, isn't that David?" I turned around to see a well-built man in a suit standing there. Who is this? I pondered for a moment, but upon seeing his smirking face, I immediately remembered. It was Max, the leader of the bullying group from school. Unpleasant memories from my student days flooded back, but he continued talking without a care. "So, you're working as a janitor?" "Yeah, that's right," I replied. "Huh?" Max looked at me with obvious disdain. "Right, you started working after middle school, huh? Tough life for the poor. I went to college and now work at Jones Corporation. High salary. Thanks to my degree. Guess I'm one of the winners," he said with his usual sarcasm. He still had a knack for being unpleasant. I just uttered some insincere praise like "that's impressive," and got through the encounter. After this day, our relationship from middle school seemed to revive. Max would come where I was cleaning and intentionally drop trash or spill coffee, harassing me. He hasn't changed at all inside. I was thoroughly exasperated. I even thought about reporting him to my boss and filing a complaint. Around that time, I received an invitation to a middle school reunion. The first thing that came to mind was Max's face. I didn't want to go if it meant seeing him, but on the other hand, there were people I wanted to see. After much deliberation, I decided to attend. On the day of the reunion, the venue was at a fancy hotel. Entering the place, I thought, I'm really not used to these kinds of places. Despite praying not to run into Max, he spotted me first. "Hey, it's David," he approached, bringing along a few of his friends, just like in middle school. "You're so poor, yet you come to such a fancy hotel," Max said, apparently drunk, holding a beer bottle, his face flushed. What a hassle. I wanted to ignore him, but he kept bothering me unilaterally. "A raggedy poor guy like you should just leave," he said, pointing the beer bottle at me. Splash! Before I knew it, I was drenched in beer. He's gone too far. I was trembling with anger, but Max didn't stop. "Look at you, fitting for a poor guy. By the way, did everyone know? This guy works as a janitor after dropping out of middle school. Pathetic, right?" He belittled me by exposing my job. "I shouldn't have come here. I'm leaving." I hadn't been there for even 10 minutes, but I headed for the exit. That's when it happened. "David," a familiar voice called from behind. I turned around swiftly and saw a beautiful, glamorous woman. For a moment, I was so startled that I froze. But I recognized the familiar traces in her face. "Is that you, Emily?" She smiled brightly. "Correct. It's been since middle school, hasn't it? Have you been well?" "Of course, I've been good. It's nostalgic, isn't it?" Emily was the person I wanted to see. But Max interrupted our reunion. "Well, she's gorgeous. How about going out for a drink with me after this?" he said, trying to pick her up. It's astounding how someone who once bullied me could do such a thing. I was beyond anger and just felt dumbfounded. Emily seemed to feel the same and completely ignored him. Rejected, Max's face turned even redder. "Refusing me. It's all your fault, David. A loser with a low salary," he rambled incoherently. Emily sighed, walked up to Max, and said, "This is not the time for such talk. Is your company even okay?" Confused about what she meant, Emily then grabbed my hand and said, "We don't need to be here. Let's go." We left the venue and went to a nearby cafe. I was curious about her earlier remark. "What did you mean by Max's company being okay?" "Well, the company he works for is in financial trouble and on the brink of bankruptcy," Emily explained. "What, really? Even though it's such a big corporation?" I was astonished. It was hard to believe. It's true. Max is a low-level employee, so he seems unaware of it, Emily said. Why do you know about this, Emily? Well, I became a journalist. I heard about Jones Corporation while covering another company. I see. But it's surprising to hear you became a journalist, Emily. Weren't you quite shy in middle school? Emily took a sip of her coffee and paused. Actually, the reason I became a journalist is because of the help I got from you, David, during middle school. Back then, I couldn't do anything but receive help. I couldn't even stop the bullies. That's why I wanted to become a journalist like you. Someone with a sense of justice, pursuing what is right. That's flattering. Being praised for having a sense of justice made me feel a bit bashful. I had always thought that I made Emily worry more at that time, but it was good to know that I had been of some help. Emily straightened her posture. I wanted to tell you something today that I couldn't say back in middle school, she said. I instinctively sat up straighter. What could it be? Emily slowly began to speak. I've liked you since middle school. Would you go out with me? Joy slowly spread through me. I wondered if it was okay to be this happy. Really, the truth is, I've liked you since middle school too. I came today hoping to see you. Hearing this, Emily smiled. It's like a dream. Thank you. And so, we officially became a couple. We made plans to meet again and went our separate ways. I felt it was good I came despite the initial unpleasantness. A few days later, I went to clean a building housing Jones Corporation. The employees were bustling about, likely due to the company's bankruptcy, as reported in the news. Emily's information was accurate. Max had lost his job too and was struggling to find new employment. Apparently, he was often absent from work and frequently caused trouble with clients. His bad reputation had spread to various companies. Moreover, he had accumulated substantial debts due to gambling and drinking. Frankly, I thought it was self-inflicted. Finally, the bad guy got his comeuppance, a satisfying turn of events. There was a significant change at my workplace too. I was assigned to the new business development department. The department I was assigned to was indeed experimenting with various new ventures, mainly focusing on the development of cleaning robots. To my surprise, I was included in the development team. In fact, I had maintained my interest in robots since starting my job, studying them as a hobby. When I mentioned this to my boss, he arranged a meeting for me with the head of the development department. My self-taught knowledge impressed him, and he was surprised by the extent of it. He expressed a keen interest in having someone with my passion on the team, and thus my placement in the department was quickly decided. I never expected my childhood dream to come true in such a manner. Life is indeed unpredictable. I worked diligently there and developed a household cleaning robot. It turned out to be a huge hit. This success led to several promotions and a significant increase in my salary. Recently, I used some of that money to take my grandparents on a hot springs trip. Staying at a renowned inn, we enjoyed exceptional hot springs and cuisine. Grandpa and Grandma said it had been years since they last experienced such luxury and thoroughly savored their rare trip. I think I managed to repay them a bit more with this gesture. My relationship with Emily also progressed well. Despite our busy schedules, we continued to have regular dates. Then, on the third anniversary of our dating, I proposed to Emily. She joyfully accepted the ring I offered. Emily's parents also approved of our marriage. I had been worried that they might reject me because I only graduated from middle school, but they were not the kind of people to worry about such things. David is someone we've known since he was in elementary school. We trust his character, so we're happy to give our daughter in marriage to him, they said, blessing our union. Of course, Grandpa and Grandma attended our wedding. Both were moved to tears, saying, "There's nothing happier than this. Congratulations." A year after our marriage, we had a child. It was a son. I plan to pass on to my son the lessons my grandmother taught me. We named him Nathan, hoping he would grow up to be kind to others. I believe that's the most important quality a person can have. Although my middle school years were filled with unpleasant memories, I'm glad I persevered and lived earnestly. Going forward, I want to continue living with a heart that cares for others. I'm Jason, 29 years old. I work for a newspaper company. Lately, I've become more confident in my job and have started to feel more decisive when mentoring my juniors. I got married last year. Emily, who worked at a coffee chain tenant in our company building. She became quite popular. Many customers came just to see her, as she was considered one of the pretty staff members. I was over the moon when she secretly gave me her contact information inside the store. It was unbelievable. We had casual chats during her shifts, but I never expected Emily to be interested in me. Everything progressed smoothly from there. Of course, due to work, frequent dates weren't possible, but we kept in close contact, and I made sure to visit the shop whenever Emily was working. On our days off, I spent as much time as possible with her. After dating for a year, I proposed, and we did our best to fulfill Emily's wishes for the wedding. A garden wedding amidst a profusion of blooming roses. A wedding dress with a rose motif. Emily, holding a bouquet of white and yellow roses, looked truly beautiful. Even after marriage, work keeps me busy. It's regrettable that I don't get as much time with Emily as I had hoped, but when I return to our new condo, she always has dinner ready. She sits across from me at the dinner table, sipping coffee with a smile, and shares stories about her day. It feels like a waste that she quit her job to focus on supporting me, but when she cutely says, "I don't want us to live like ships passing in the night," I can help but feel it's not so bad. The only shadow in my otherwise smooth-sailing life is my boss, Michael. Michael has been my supervisor since he transferred to our department 5 years ago, and our relationship wasn't bad at first. We had a decent trust as boss and subordinate. But at some point, he started kicking garbage cans and chairs near my desk as if by accident and responded to my greetings with a jerk of his chin and no words. Sometimes, he even fails to notify me about important matters. "Michael, what's going on lately? Did you do something? Or maybe you were a fan of Emily?" My colleague Chris jokes in an attempt to lighten the mood. So far, it hasn't impacted my work significantly. Emily says she doesn't even remember Michael. Maybe it's jealousy over a subordinate having a beautiful wife. I thought it would pass and decided to leave it be for a while. 2 years into our marriage, I was investigating a backdoor admission scandal at a university. The president was allegedly accepting money for admission favors. I almost had solid evidence and cooperation from an insider, just a step away from completing the article. Then, one day, I was called into the president's office. There were President Thompson, Michael, and Luke, my informant. "Luke, why are you here?" "I'm here because you said you wouldn't disclose my identity. The president called me in today. You were the only one I was in contact with. What about my future now? It's all messed up," Luke yelled angrily. I hadn't shared his personal information with anyone in the company. Despite my strict information management, how did this leak? "Jason, given the situation, we must assume the president is aware of our investigation. They will have prepared counter-arguments for any evidence we present. We'll continue the investigation, but you need to step back for now. We'll contact you later. Stay at home in the meantime. We will also compensate Luke." Stunned by President Thompson's words, I realized that there was nothing I could do at the moment. As I was leaving the president's office, I raised my head to see Michael's face. unsuccessfully trying to hide his delight behind a solemn expression, with a slight smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. In that moment, I had an intuition that Michael was involved in this. I hadn't shared anything about Luke with him, my boss or not. But I had no proof. When I got home, Emily greeted me with a smile. It was hard to share the company troubles, but I couldn't keep it from her. "Emily, there's been trouble at work, and it looks like I might be held responsible. I'll have to stay at home for a while." What happens after that? I couldn't tell what Emily's expression was as she looked down. "I'm not sure yet, but I think I'll be losing my current position." "Understood. I'll go back to my parents' house for a while. Let me know when things settle down." With that, Emily quickly packed her things and left the house without asking for further details. Later, I received a transfer order. This branch, located in the founder's hometown, has been downsized several times and faced closure, but it seems to exist solely because of its historical significance. Emily didn't come with me. When I informed her about the transfer over the phone, she simply said, "I can't go to the countryside, the salary will be much less, right?" and hung up. Later, my father-in-law came with the divorce papers already filled out. "I thought I could trust you with Emily. It's a shame it has come to this, but it seems she's not willing to support you. It's better for both of you to go your separate ways. I'm sorry. I should have brought her here by force." It turned out that Emily needed a husband who worked for a somewhat reputable company. That must be why she never complained about my late returns home. I didn't care anymore and signed the divorce papers on the spot. Life at the branch was peaceful. The staff was kind, and though they must have known the reason for my demotion, they never mentioned it. But I hesitated to get deeply involved with them and kept my distance on my days off. Most of my assignments were peaceful, like store introductions and culture columns. They might be assigning these to help me get accustomed to the area. After always having hectic days since joining the company, living like this might not be so bad. And so, life at the branch went on. Amidst all this, I was summoned to the main office after a long time. I was required to attend a meeting about Thori information management. Of course, due to the incident involving me, absence was not an option. Early one morning, as I was walking to the station, I saw someone crouched down in the station square. Rushing over, I found an elderly woman with white hair, panting and in distress. "Are you okay?" I asked. "I'll be fine," she replied weakly, trying to stand up, but she suddenly collapsed. I supported her, but she seemed to have lost consciousness. Laying her down, I called for an ambulance. "Is this an accident or a medical emergency?" The operator's voice helped me regain some composure. "A medical emergency. An elderly woman has collapsed in front of the station. The ambulance is on its way. Please tell me about the patient's condition. Is she breathing?" When I told the operator that her breathing had stopped, they said, "Please secure the airway and start CPR with chest compressions. Do you know how to do it?" I have attended a training course before. Following the operator's instructions, I started compressing her chest. The elderly lady's chest sank under the pressure, which made me anxious. I remembered being taught to do so, but her consciousness and breathing did not return. I was afraid her frail body might break. Could she die right here in front of me? Just when I felt almost crushed by anxiety, the elderly lady suddenly gasped for air with a sharp gasp. Relief washed over me as I heard the distant sound of a siren. Tears mixed with sweat, creating a mess on my face. "The patient is here. Please come with us in the ambulance," said the arriving paramedics. I got into the ambulance and explained the situation. I was passing by when I saw her crouching in pain, so I approached her, but after trying to stand up, she lost consciousness. "So, she's not a relative of yours. Could you please explain the situation again at the hospital?" "Understood." Upon arriving at the hospital and speaking with the staff, I was released. However, I didn't feel like moving right away. I bought a hot coffee from a vending machine and sat down on the hard hospital sofa. I wondered if the elderly lady was all right. It was too late to make it to the meeting on time, so I needed to call and inform them. But I couldn't just not attend. From here, I could take a taxi to the nearest station. I didn't want to go, but I had no choice. Excuse me, thank you so much for helping her. A young woman, accompanied by hospital staff, approached me. You're the one who brought in our patient, right? She's recovered. This is her granddaughter, and she wants to thank you. Thank you for finding my grandmother. She was saved because you found her and acted quickly. I really appreciate it, she said. She appeared to have rushed over, wearing no makeup and glasses. She flicked her hair and thanked me. It's all right, I'm glad she's okay. Now, I must be going. Wait, were you heading to catch a train? Were you going into town? Let me drive you there, please. I tried to decline, insisting she should stay with her grandmother, but she insisted and drove me to the nearest station. In the car, I excused myself to call the head office and inform them of my delay. Though it was unavoidable, I felt heavy-hearted. She asked for my contact details, but I didn't want any further involvement, so I left using the train's timing as an excuse. The meeting went terribly. Although I had informed them that I was late due to a life-saving emergency, the nature of the meeting made it uncomfortable. I could feel the cold stares and the sarcasm in the speaker's words. I tried to investigate how the information had leaked after that incident, but found no leads. I thought I had been very careful with my notebook and digital tools to prevent any leaks. Where could the leak have come from? I had no idea. I searched for spy tools or hidden cameras but found nothing. Hearing familiar instructions on information management, I returned home feeling drained. A week later, something unexpected happened. A call came to the newspaper office. It was from Eleanor, the elderly woman I had saved that day, asking me to visit her home to express her gratitude. I should be the one visiting you, but my granddaughter won't let me go out. You saved my life, and I really want to thank you. It's difficult to refuse a request from an elderly lady. Moreover, somehow, she knew both my workplace and my name. Refusing and risking her coming to the office would be awkward in front of my colleagues. I agreed to visit her on my next day off. The address she gave led me to a tasteful house. The well-maintained garden seemed to reflect the character of its inhabitants. As I rang the doorbell, I heard quick footsteps and the door opened. "Welcome, Jason. We've been expecting you." Rachel, the granddaughter I met at the hospital, greeted me with a bright smile. Unlike that day, she had her long hair beautifully styled and was wearing a sky blue dress. Presumably wearing contact lenses today, she wasn't wearing her glasses. "Please come in. My grandmother has been eagerly waiting for you in the living room," she assured me where the grandmother sat comfortably on a chair in the living room. "Oh my, you're Jason. Thank you for coming. I don't know how to thank you enough. You're my lifesaver. I really appreciate it," she said. I was worried since she was not allowed to go out, but she seemed livelier than I expected. "My granddaughter Rachel has prepared some food. Please have some." I helped a little, though I might have made more work for her. It's the thought that counts, right? Haha. She seemed like a cheerful and lovely elderly lady. I was truly relieved that she didn't die right in front of me. While I was thinking this, Rachel brought out dish after dish. Mashed potatoes, braised chicken and vegetables, and pickled vegetables. The table looked like my family's during a festive occasion, bringing back nostalgic feelings. Emily usually prepared Western-style dishes, and since our separation, I had mostly eaten out or had fast food, so it had been a while since I had homemade food. "Do you like wine, Jason?" We have some bottles we received as gifts, but we can't finish them by ourselves. It would be a waste to let them lose their flavor just sitting around. Would you like some?" I was going to decline, but the brand she offered piqued my interest. "By the way, how did you know where I work and my name?" "I don't recall telling you." "You must have told the hospital staff, right? I knew your name when we first met, and look at this." With a flourish, Rachel pulled out my business card from her pocket. "It was in the car. Maybe you dropped it when you called. My family would have scolded me if I couldn't find out how to contact you. Lucky you dropped it." She laughed mischievously, just like her grandmother. It seemed she had prepared to show me the card. Eleanor was on her way to New York to meet her husband, who was there for work. Disliking the hustle and bustle, she usually lived here, but she would visit him on a whim. Once she makes up her mind, she leaves with just a note, so Rachel, who lives with her, is understandably worried. However, seeing her grandmother enjoy her outings, they now joke about it, saying, "When I wake up in the morning, Grandma has disappeared." But incidents like this one made it no laughing matter. "My grandfather wanted to meet you too, but he had to return to the company urgently. He asked me to convey his deepest gratitude. They're still very much in love, you know." The food and wine were delicious, and I indulged. Eleanor and Rachel were great conversationalists, and before I knew it, I had shared everything. My demotion due to the leak, my swift abandonment by my wife whom I thought loved me, and the realization that she probably never loved me. Eleanor looked at me and said, "Why don't we bring those two to justice together?" Together, I wondered, what did she mean? Eleanor as an avenger, it was an odd thought. It seemed impossible. As I was puzzled, Rachel laughed mischievously. "By the way, I forgot to introduce myself properly in my rush. I'm Rachel Thompson." "Oh, but my grandmother must have mentioned my name when she invited you here, Jason. Does the name Thompson ring a bell in this area?" Suddenly it clicked. Thompson, the founding family's name, and this was the founding location. So that meant I am, in a manner of speaking, the chairman's wife. I'm the president's daughter. They looked at each other and laughed. But Eleanor quickly became serious again. "Listening to your story, Jason, it seems wise to investigate possibilities other than your mistake. Michael, was it? There's no evidence, but he doesn't leave a good impression. And your ex-wife, her actions were too hasty upon hearing your story. It might be good to look into her as well." Her husband, the chairman, hated dishonesty and had run the newspaper with that principle. People who shared his beliefs had built up the company. Now, Eleanor's son and Rachel's father, President Thompson, was in charge. The idea of corruption in such a company was intolerable to them. 2 months later, I was back at the head office. Michael, who had called the meeting, entered the conference room. "Long time no see, Michael. You know why you've called me here, right?" "No, I don't. Maybe you're here for a promotion celebration." Anger rose inside me as Michael played dumb. It turned out he was the one who leaked the information to the university. And it was Emily who had informed him of my investigation. Michael and Emily were alumni of the same university and had dated for a while. However, Michael married another woman. Whether Emily working at the coffee shop in the newspaper building was a coincidence or her pursuit was unclear. But she dated me and we got married. Behind the scenes, she had rekindled her relationship with Michael. "Emily informed you about the contents of my notebook, didn't she?" When I confronted her with evidence of infidelity, she easily confessed everything. "It's just a lie because she's upset that I dumped her. She's been a nuisance following me around since the old days." As Michael spat out these words, the conference room door swung open and President Thompson walked in. "You really don't give up, do you, Michael? Using the car phone for your scheming was a sloppy move. There's plenty of evidence left behind. And it seems there are other matters too." Smirking, President Thompson waved his cell phone, and Michael, dumbfounded, hung his head. It was an abrupt conclusion, but he seemed to have resigned himself to the situation. I wasn't told what was on the cell phone, but it appeared Michael had several other offenses. Following President Thompson, the HR director, David, escorted Michael out of the conference room. An inquiry was to follow, with disciplinary actions to be decided thereafter. Alone with President Thompson, he apologized. "Jason, I'm sorry. We failed to investigate properly and hastily moved you from your department to the branch office. From the inquiries we've conducted, we heard consistently that you were an outstanding journalist, and it's impossible for Jason to leak information. If you're willing, we'd like you to return to the main office. Thanks for the offer, but I like my current job. If you're willing to consider my request, I'd like to continue working at the branch. Plus, encountering Eleanor Thompson and this incident happened because I was there. Not everything was bad." Saying this aloud, any lingering regrets about the main office vanished. I returned to the branch, continuing to cover heartwarming local news. Eleanor Thompson, still experiencing some paralysis, often had meals with us, joined by President Thompson, who seemed concerned for her. I started dating Rachel. President Thompson and Eleanor had me cornered. I had no intention of running, nor did it seem passable. Recently, Rachel asked me, "What do you think about a reverse proposal?" But I just laughed at official. The problem is Rachel is an only child, but I think a proposal should come from me, not in reverse.